It's almost time for April, and that means a new sub battle here at the channel. And I know it's only March 31st, but don't tell Steelers talk. We're starting a little bit early. We're going to have the best coverage for the Dolphins on the month of April with the draft. So hit that sub button, but let's also beat Steelers talk in our monthly sub battle. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. And on today's show, we have a fascinating one. It is a full 7-round mock draft, but I am not making the picks. ESPN's Matt Miller released a full 7-round draft with every team making picks, and I am going to go through each one and each round to see who we had the Dolphins taking, give my thoughts on each player, and then we'll grade this Dolphins mock draft at the end of today's show. But with the 13th overall pick, Matt Miller had someone Miami fans are going to be happy taking. That is Will Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU. He ultimately slid to the 13th pick, and he had the Dolphins taking him. On this selection, Miller said that Campbell started at tackle in all 3 seasons at LSU, but his short arms, measured at 32 and 5/8 inches at the combine, well below the 34-inch threshold, have tagged him as a player likely to move to guard. He has the poise and movement ability to mask his length issues at tackle. He's a mauler with coachable upside at tackle or guard. Given how desperate the Dolphins are for a quality tackle, they'd be wise to try Campbell there first and move him to guard only if needed. And I'll say this, I have multiple thoughts on what Miller had to say with the selection. I'll keep on saying this when it comes to Will Campbell. I like other players, but if Will Campbell is available with the 13th overall pick, you take him. If not, I'm probably going at defensive back. But I do disagree with something Miller said on Will Campbell's fit with Miami about trying him at tackle before moving him to guard. Mel Kiper mock drafted Will Campbell to the Dolphins, and one of the reasons he had him landing there was because needing that left tackle spot. Well, Miller kind of mentioned the same thing. Do these ESPN guys not know who's on the Dolphins roster? Like, seriously, we don't need a left tackle. Now, we might need a left tackle next year if Patrick Paul ends up being bad and he's going into his 3rd season after being last year's 2nd-round pick and he is not having any confidence at the position. But don't get it twisted. Patrick Paul is your starting left tackle. Unless he gets hurt, there is not a world, in my opinion, unless Armstead ultimately does return, but it seems like he is certainly going to retire, that Paul's not your left tackle. So if you're drafting Will Campbell, you're playing him at left guard immediately unless you're somehow moving Austin Jackson to left guard and putting Will Campbell at right tackle, which I do not see that being anything possible either. So yes, I would be drafting Will Campbell if he's on the board at 13 to play him at left guard, but no, he is not going to be an offensive tackle. I don't understand this line of thinking from ESPN. That's now 2 times they have done that. I don't get it. It's driving me kind of nuts. All right, who is your dream pick at pick number 13? Let me know. Some may say it's Armand Membu. Some may say it's Will Campbell. Some might say it's Will Johnson. I think those 3 are probably my top 3 picks for Miami at the 13th overall selection. Let me know who your dream pick is down below. All right, let's move over to round 2, pick number 48, where we have a prospect we have not discussed heading to the Miami Dolphins here. That is Carson Schwesinger, the linebacker from UCLA, a player we have not talked about, a position that I've kind of gone away from in mock drafts because of what has happened in free agency. But Matt Miller said that Schwesinger is a rangy inside linebacker with the instincts, processing speed, and quickness needed to be a rookie starter inside in the base 3-4 scheme. The former walk-on turned All-American was 3rd in the FBS with 136 tackles in 2024 while adding 4 sacks and 2 interceptions. And Schwesinger is an interesting prospect. He is very athletic. He can be one of the most rangy sideline-to-sideline linebackers in the entire NFL and is probably going to be a good defensive player in the National Football League. I'm just not so sure the best fit for him is with Miami. The Dolphins are loaded at linebacker. And I think when you look at this Dolphins roster, it would be best suited going in a different direction, whether it's secondary at corner safety or defensive line if you're going offensive line in round 1. But let's talk about the player here because not a lot of Dolphins fans might not know about Schwesinger. Well, he was very, very good last season for UCLA. 136 tackles, as you saw. But the thing that makes him so intriguing is his speed. He's good in coverage. He's good at even rushing the passer. He had 4 sacks last season. But when you look at him in coverage, yeah, 70% completion percentage just about, but he was able to take the ball away a couple times with 2 interceptions. A QB rating when targeted of exactly 100, 5 PBUs. This is a fascinating player. Schwesinger is someone that I am not sure I would be in on him at pick 48, and it's not like I'd be in on him at pick 98 either because he's going to be off the board at that point. He's a good young player. But just think of what Miami has done this offseason. They re-signed Tyrell Dodson on a 2-year, $8.4 million deal. They signed KJ Britt and Willie Gay Jr. on 1-year contracts, and Channing Tindall is still under contract as well. Are they really adding a top 50 pick to that inside linebacker room? I just find that very far-fetched. Think he's a good player. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned here time over time, talking about Schwesinger, it's just bigger needs for Miami. Linebacker, too, was a need coming into free agency. They addressed that in the depth at that position. Chr Grier, that is one of the positions Miami is probably good at. And I would maybe take one in the day 3s of the draft if they like the prospect, but on day 2, no. All right, let's move over to pick 98 here, where Billy Bowman Jr., the defensive back from Oklahoma, is the selection. And even though we have him listed as a DB, this is a safety in the NFL. Matt Miller on Bowman heading to Miami, saying that the Dolphins let safety Javon Holland walk in free agency and added experience with Ifeatu Melifonwu and Ashton Davis. But Bowman is a playmaker with 4.42 speed and 8 interceptions in the past 3 seasons. And Bowman is someone that I actually have talked about in the past. I actually sneaky like him as a day 2 option. Maybe could slide to early day 3. Unlikely, but at pick 98, I'm definitely intrigued by Bowman. You heard Miller mention it. He's athletic. He's rangy. He is a ball-hawking safety. This is a definition of a free safety. He scored 4 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. He's excellent in coverage, allowing just a QB rating of 79.6. Only allowed 4 touchdowns last year. Had a really good completion percentage against. This is a good defensive back who can make plays ranging as that deep guy. And it's all about the speed. This isn't going to be a box safety. And as we look at his RAS here, you see he's not a big dude. He's 5'9". He's 192 pounds, so he's small in stature, but he makes up for it in his explosion and his speed, which is when these quarterbacks throw it deep down the field when they think they have one-on-one coverage and Bowman's just lurking in the middle of the field. He can use that 4.42 speed to break on the football and make plays. I am intrigued with adding Bowman to this roster. We know the Dolphins are going to draft a safety because they're not going to roll with just Melifonwu, McMorris, and Ashton Davis. Bowman is an interesting character to add to that room. I will move over to round 4 here where the Omarr Norman-Lott, the defensive tackle from Tennessee, is the selection heading to the Dolphins via Matt Miller. This is a player that I'm intrigued with. I really am. Started his career at Arizona State, ended up transferring to the SEC, playing for Tennessee over the past 2 seasons. He is a defensive tackle that is not your standard run stopper. This is an elite pass rusher for his position. And I think you see it with 9.5 total sacks over the past 2 seasons and 43 pressures from the interior. And boy, would this pick make me very happy on day 3 of the NFL draft. Early round 4, you draft a defensive tackle that had the highest pass rush win rate at the position last year. Are there better overall pass rushers on the defensive line? Yes. Is there better run stoppers? Yes. But he's a hybrid defensive tackle that can do both. Now, he does specialize, like I said, best of all defensive tackles at winning in the pass rush game. This is a good player that I would be very happy with. And if you're looking at the 4 picks we've talked about to this point, Campbell, Schwesinger, Bowman, and Norman-Lott, I would probably rank Norman-Lott as my second favorite in terms of value and player at the position. I will move over to the second 4th round pick for the Dolphins, and they go QB Kyle McCord, the man from Syracuse, who I know a lot of Dolphins fans are intrigued by, someone that I've labeled as a day 3 target for the Dolphins as well. We'll break down him in just a second. But make sure you get your Dolphins gear while it's on sale. The sweet white hoodie with the palm trees, Go Fins, personal favorite of mine, is $40 off. Yes, you heard that right. Usually $75, brand $47. You can get it for $35 right now. Chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. That link's in the description and comments of today's video. Take advantage. Size is running out. $40 off. All right, I really like Kyle McCord, and funny enough, Jon Gruden does as well. Remember the old coach who is still bringing out the content these days? Well, he just said that he wrapped on our 3rd Gruden's QB class, and he did it with Kyle McCord. Love this guy. Doesn't only have a rifle of a right arm, but he's exactly the kind of mind I want under center. Look out for number 6. So if he gets Jon Gruden's stamp approval, I'm intrigued. But McCord is also someone that fascinates me because he played extremely well at the Senior Bowl. He did extremely well this past season for the Syracuse Orangemen after transferring out of Ohio State. The improvements he made going from Ohio State to Syracuse, it was very, very big. And you see it, 37 total touchdowns. He increased his yards by 1,600 and was about the same in terms of his completion percentage. I think when he hits his back foot, gets his lower half engaged, and fires over the middle of the field, he has very good arm strength. Is it elite, like we're bombing it down the field arm strength? No, but it's adequate enough, and he could fire it over the middle of the field. McCord would be a very fun developmental quarterback to be on this Dolphins group. He'd be someone I'm definitely intrigued in the 4th, 5th round if he's available. But do you agree? Do you want the Dolphins to draft Kyle McCord? I know there's a lot of Syracuse alums, Syracuse fans that actually are Dolphins fans in our comment section, so you guys might be fired up about this one. Let me know. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Shout out Bill Lyon. All right, we'll move on to round 5 here. Jaylin Lane, a wide receiver from Virginia Tech, is going to be the selection for Miller here at pick number 150. This dude is fun. He is as explosive as it comes. And we know this. The Dolphins in this current organization with Chr Grier and Mike McDaniel, they prioritize athleticism. They prioritize speed. They choose that over physicality in the trenches. Is it the right line of thinking? No, if we're going to be honest. Speed is fun, but to win in close games in the cold weather, you got to have physicality. But Lane is someone I could definitely see the Dolphins targeting. So I do get this selection by Matt Miller. You look at his RAS. I mean, a lot of grade. The only res is that his size, 5'9", 191 pounds, but you see his 40-yard dash, 4.34. He's an absolute burner. Short quickness as well, good numbers in the 3-cone and the shuttle, and another thing that I really like, his explosiveness. The vertical and broad jump tell you how quickly you're going to be able to make plays, get off the line of scrimmage. He does that at an exceptionally high level. And he wasn't the most productive guy last season for Virginia Tech. He's a traits dude, only 466 yards, 2 touchdowns, was decent in drops game. But my question is with Jaylin Lane. Even though I am very intrigued because of his speed, and I know the Dolphins probably will be interested due to his athleticism and his traits, I don't know if the Dolphins need another one. Think about it. Their wide receiver room. They've got 4 good wide receivers on this roster. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Nick Westbrook-Ikini, who they signed for ANC, and Malik Washington. What's one common theme with 3 of those 4 guys? Malik is only 5'8", 5'9". Tyreek's only about 5'9", and Jalen Waddle's 5'10", 5'11". Now, Westbrook-Ikini's 6'2", but you have 3 guys in Malik Washington, Waddle, and Hill that are speedy and small. Do the Dolphins need a 4th one? No, probably not. If they're drafting a wide receiver, which I still think could be an option on day 3 of the draft, I would look at one of the physical guys, the bigger profiled ones that can work behind Nick Westbrook-Ikini and could be a red zone threat, like a Pat Bryant from Illinois, a Nick Nash from San Jose State. Those are the type of guys that I'm looking at, not a speedy burner that's a little bit smaller like Jaylin Lane. All right, we're going to go back to the offensive line here where Matt Miller has the Dolphins selecting Johnny Cornelius, the O-lineman from Oregon. And he actually had a pretty good season last season for the Ducks. He graded out pretty well for Oregon. He is a 3-year starter at right tackle. You see PFF giving him grades in the low 70s at all phases of the game. Was only penalized 4 times last season, which is certainly something that I'm intrigued with. He played every game, so he didn't have a lot of injuries. A little bit of a scouting profile here from Cornelius. PFF said that he's a big-bodied, powerful blocker with some foot quickness and overall speed limitations and pass protection, but he's a decent developmental player for a main/gap scheme run blocking concepts. Cornelius, if you're drafting him in the 5th round, this is a dart throw here to be someone that you hope to make the roster behind Eichenberg, behind Larry Borum, behind some of these other swing tackles that can develop. All right, we're going to rattle off all 3 7th-round picks that Miami have at the same time here. R.J. Oben, the edge from Notre Dame. Marquise Seigel, the safety from Kansas State. And then Justin Wally, the DB corner from Minnesota. 3 guys that will just be hoping to fight for a roster spot. I think I say this every time we do a mock draft, but if we're seriously breaking in depth about every 7th-round pick the Dolphins make in these mock drafts, you're missing the point. It's more or less just looking at potential ways you could round out your draft with 10 selections if you go offense, defense, trenches earlier in the NFL draft. All right, we saw all 10 picks the Dolphins made in this ESPN mock draft from Matt Miller. So I got to ask you, before I give you my grade, let me know your thoughts. Grade the Dolphins mock draft from ESPN, A, B, C, D, or F. I'm going to give it a solid B. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just solid. I think it's good. Like, if you left that weekend in April with Will Campbell as your new starting left guard, I just don't see how you can have any complaints about the way the rest of the draft unfolded. Now, the one thing that brings this mock draft down to me is taking Carson Schwesinger. I botched that name that time in the 2nd round. Why? Because I don't think it's really necessary to go linebacker in round 2 at pick 48. I like Bowman at 98. I really like Omarr Norman-Lott in the 4th round. Like, I like some of these mid-round picks, but I'm not a big fan of going linebacker in round 2. I think there's other positions. Like, we didn't really address corner. Like, who's going to be our CB2? Is there signing one free agency? Like, that's probably what would have to happen if you had a mock or if you had a draft like this in the real thing, because there still is no CB2. You got a couple safeties, but that's about it. All right, I'll do it for this episode. Like I said, we're about to get to the month of April, and we'll have you covered with every single piece of Dolphins news, rumors surrounding the NFL draft, and free agency still going on. So hit that sub button, because when Dolphins news and rumors drop, we'll have you covered.